Today, we share the heartbreaking story of infidelity, betrayals, which ruins two lives irreparably. Returned home early from work, trip to find a man with my wife, at our bed, destroyed both their lives. I really don't know how to start, so don't mind if I just ramble it out here. I was out of the town for a work trip. I was supposed to return tomorrow, Friday. Since the workload was thin, I came home early, which was yesterday, Wednesday. Just when I was driving in, I found an unfamiliar car in my driveway. The car was not owned by anyone I know. I felt giddy about it. Instead of using the front gate, I went to the backyard to access the back door. My bedroom window opened at the backside. The window was locked, but the curtain was not pulled off completely. I got a glimpse of what I was dreading until now. There she was, my wife, the love of my life, humping on an unknown man. At least I didn't know him, not sure about hers. I could have just barged in and confronted them right there. But I was not in my senses. I was operating on autopilot mode. I left the premises and drove off. I didn't know where to go. I kept driving it until my mind calmed down. I parked my car on the sideways and sat inside for hours, not knowing what to do. I had to discuss this with someone but didn't want to open up with any family member or so. One of my close friends, Andy, lived next town. I drove off to his place. I had other friends too who lived close by, but Andy is my comfortable place where I can vent without the fear of any judgment. Andy and his wife have always known me. Seeing my miserable face, she left me alone with Andy and a few bottles of whiskey. I vented out for hours. I was so heartbroken and drunk that I don't remember when I passed out. I woke up straight this afternoon, losing the sense of date and time. Andy made me something to eat. His wife was off to work and he was working from home. He suggested I speak to a counselor first, or at least talk it out with my wife. With that, I realized that I had switched off my phone after leaving the house yesterday. I switched it on and there were a few messages from Stacy, my wife. It was basically asking about my day and at what time I would be going home tomorrow. Amidst all this, I forgot that Stacy and I were to go for a week-long hiking trip and we were to leave tomorrow night. She was asking me about those details. I texted her that something urgent had come up at work and would need to overstay for a week more. I told her I would cancel all the reservations for now. She said, okay. I tell you, I actually threw away my phone after that call because I felt so disgusted to talk to her. Andy's sister-in-law is a therapist in London, so she patched me up with her on a video call for tomorrow. Let's see how I progress there. Right now, all I can think about is violence and anger. I wish I could have smashed both their heads right there when I saw them on my bed. She was doing it on our bed, which makes me even more resentful of her. Right on the front wall of the bedroom where she was facing, we have a huge portrait of our wedding day. How could she cheat on me? Right in front of our wedding portrait! I need a break from this feeling. Update 1. Hello all, thanks for the incredible support. It's just so overwhelming. Never thought there are so many people who would offer to lend me emotional support during this tough time. Really means a lot. Let me start with the updates. I spoke to the therapist for a good 1 hour. She gave me a lot of clarity I needed. Not clarity exactly, but some enlightenment. The moment I saw her cheating, I was clear that I wanted a divorce, but I was not clear how to proceed. The anger and bitterness just didn't allow me to think straight. All I wanted was to strangle her, but that subsided over time. I also spoke to a lawyer to proceed with the paperwork. Andy and his wife offered me to stay with them as long as I wanted. They even offered to let out their spare room for me, but I don't want to pile up on them, so I have hunted for a temporary tiny condo for myself to settle in until the divorce is done. After sorting out all this stuff, I went home. Stacy greeted me with the usual hugs and kisses, but I didn't reciprocate. I just stood numb. She asked me what was wrong. I said nothing. She asked me if I was angry with her. I asked her if she did anything wrong. She said no. I stared at her with cold eyes. She pretended as if she had no clue. She indeed had no clue, but her guilt stopped her from defending. I asked her to confess everything she had been doing behind my back. She had tears rolling down her cheeks. She said she had no idea what I was talking about, but she was scared to see such anger in my eyes. How much ever I wanted to spell out the stuff I saw that afternoon through the window, but I just wasn't able to. I don't know why. I kept telling her to confess and she wept, denying doing anything wrong. I stood up, packed some of my essentials, and left. She tried to intervene and stop me many times when I was packing and leaving, but every time I asked her to confess and she backed off. It was such a terrible situation. I was choking and struggling for breath. I left the house to go to Andy's place, but for the next 1 hour, I kept loitering around the town. Stacy was calling me constantly, and I wanted to talk it out with her. Call it my anger ego or whatever. My mind was just so unstable. After 2 hours and hundreds of calls, I responded. She requested me to come home and that she was ready to confess. I drove back. Again, when I reached home, she hugged me, crying profusely. She asked me if I was angry because she went out drinking last week without telling me about her girls' gang and came home smashed. Our next-door neighbor had seen her returning home at 3. She thought he would have told me. I said I had no idea about that girls' night thing. She said it was supposed to be a girls' night, but Becky, her friend, brought a couple of guys, and one of them offered to drop Stacy home because she was too drunk to drive herself. I asked her if that was it. She said yes and kept saying, "Sorry for not informing me about that night." I asked her if there's anything else she wanted to confess. She stood silent for a moment and realized this was not the reason for my anger. She meekly said, "Actually, the party was at Becky's place and she invited a few guys, but I and the other girls had no idea about it. The guys were flirtatious, and after a while Becky went inside with one of them. Then one of the guys was just too much into me, and we did some normal stuff. I asked her what was that normal stuff. She said just touching and feeling each other. But I swear nothing else happened. No penetrations, nothing." You see, she was playing mind games. Confessing the milder ones, she didn't know that I had already seen the full episode. There were another few rounds of these mini confessions. I would spare the details of each of those stupid or made-up stories. I don't even remember half of the details of those confessions, because I was waiting for her to spit out the ultimate truth that I had seen. After she was done with her cover-up confessions, I asked her, "Which of these guys you were fucking up on our bed last Wednesday?" She froze. She was like, there must be some misunderstanding. I was done with her lies that I yelled out, "I have seen it!" She let out the tears of defeat and helplessness, and then narrated the entire thing. It all started at a girls' night out where there were a bunch of men. They approached these women. They partied together. While returning home, Becky invited them to the after party at her home where Stacy and the other girls were heading. On reaching home, Becky took one of the guys to her room. It was awkward for others, but eventually, everyone got comfortable and Stacy hooked up with another guy. Since then, she has been seeing that guy at Becky's place and sometimes calls him home when I'm away. Stacy's phone was ringing throughout. When we were done talking, I asked her if it was him. She nodded. I responded to the call. AP on the other end, after hearing my voice say, "Maybe I dialed the wrong number," I said, "No, man, you have dialed the correct number. Now your wife would get a call from me." He hung up. Stacy pleaded not to involve AP's wife. Until then, I had no idea that he was married. I just shot in the dark, and it landed in the right place. I asked Stacy for her details. I forced her to call AP's wife and come clean. After a lot of crying and resistance, Stacy called her and confessed. A few minutes after she hung up, she got a call from AP. I asked her to answer. She answered. AP on the other end yelled at her for destroying his marriage. Stacy cried and said she was sorry about everything, but she had to do whatever I said to save her marriage. AP said his wife was packing her stuff and leaving the house, threatening to divorce and ruin him, and it was all Stacy's fault. After the phone call, the room felt like a Holocaust chamber, cold and suffocating. She tried cuddling me and suggested we take a vacation to rekindle our relationship. She mistook my silence for forgiveness. I said I have found a place for myself, and also hired a lawyer to serve her. She was astonished to hear this and gasped for air. She said she did everything I asked her, and even ruined AP's marriage to save ours. I almost laughed when she said this. I left the house asking her to vacate it, or I can transfer the lease in her name. She acted devastated, but I still left. After that, I got several calls from her parents and mine. She had told them I'm divorcing her over minor disagreements and asking them to talk me out through this. I didn't reveal anything to my parents, just told them I'm not going to change my mind, but I told her dad the truth and that man stood by me. He said I should do whatever I feel right and he's with me and would love me always. His words made me emotional and I cried out on the call. I felt quite relaxed after that. His support gave me much needed assurance. I'm living in Andy's spare room for this week. I'll get possession of the condo next week, and hopefully by then, Stacy will be served with the papers. That's all the update I have for now. Thanks for supporting me in this tough time. I hope to give back this love and support to anyone who needs it from me. Thanks for watching this. Please like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing contents.